In a quiet museum hall, a single piece of cloth rests behind glass. It glows with a deep, rich color. The color feels almost alive. Visitors walk past slowly. They stop. They stare at the fabric longer than they expected. It is not gold thread. It is not covered in jewels. And yet, it feels powerful. The color is purple, deep, dark, royal, a shade once feared and admired. Today, we see purple everywhere. On clothes, on logos, on phone cases. It feels ordinary. But there was a time when wearing this color could cost more than a house, more than a ship, sometimes more than a life. This is the story of the color that was too expensive, a color that shaped laws, a color that built empires. Few people knew how rare it once was. Few people understood its hidden cost. It looked beautiful, but it carried a secret. To understand this story, we must travel back thousands of years. Back to warm shores and restless seas. Back to the ancient Mediterranean. The sun rises over rocky coastlines. Waves crash against stone harbors. Fishing boats move quietly in the morning light. In the ancient city of Tyre, workers gather near the water. Their hands are rough. Their clothes are simple. They are not soldiers. They are not kings. They are dime makers. The city of Tyre was part of the powerful Phoenician world, a civilization of traders and sailors, masters of the sea. Phoenician ships traveled far beyond the horizon. They carried glass, wood, and precious goods. But one product made them famous. It was not silver. It was not spices. It was a color. Workers carry baskets filled with small sea snails. The shells are dull and brown. Nothing about them looks special. But inside these tiny creatures was a drop of liquid, a pale fluid, almost invisible, a hidden treasure. When exposed to sunlight and air, that liquid changed. It darkened slowly. It transformed into deep purple. The strange part was, each snail gave only a tiny amount, just a drop. To dye a single robe, thousands of snails were needed, sometimes tens of thousands. The process was slow and exhausting. The workers crushed the shells with stones. The smell was strong and unpleasant. The air around them was heavy. Large vats were filled with the snail extract. The liquid bubbled gently. Steam rose into the sky. Cloth was dipped carefully into the mixture. At first, it looked greenish, almost strange. Then sunlight touched the fabric. The color deepened. Green turned to blue. Blue slowly became purple, dark, rich, mysterious, a color no one else could easily copy. This dye became known as Tyrian purple, named after the city of Tyre, a city that guarded its secret closely. Merchants wrapped the dyed cloth carefully. They loaded it on his ships. They protected it like treasure. When the ships arrived in distant ports, people gathered. They had heard stories of a rare purple unlike any other. Kings touched the fabric with careful hands. They lifted it toward the light. They felt its weight and beauty. The price was shocking. Only rulers could afford it. Only the richest nobles dared to buy it. Soon, purple became more than a color. It became a symbol, a sign of power. In ancient Rome, laws were created about who could wear it. Not everyone had permission. The color belonged to authority. Senators wore thin purple stripes on their togas. It showed their rank. It separated them from ordinary citizens. But full purple robes were even more restricted. They were reserved for emperors, for the highest power in the empire. If a common person wore pure purple, punishment could follow. The color was protected by law. It was too valuable to share freely. The emperor's cloak flowed behind him in deep violet waves. Crowds bowed as he passed. The color announced his presence before he spoke. Purple became connected with the divine, with gods and sacred authority. with heaven itself. Temples used purple cloth in rituals. Priests draped it over altars. The color felt holy. Few people thought about the sea snails behind this beauty. Few imagined the thousands crushed for each garment. The cost was hidden. As demand grew, production increased. More workers gathered shells from the sea. More smoke rose from the dye vats. Along the coastline, piles of broken shells began to grow. Small hills of white and brown fragments. Silent evidence of the process. The smell around dye workshops became famous. Strong, sharp, almost unbearable. Yet buyers did not care about the smell. They cared about the result. They cared about status. In royal courts, purple curtains framed golden thrones. The strange part was, the more expensive it became, the more people desired it. Purple told a story without words. It whispered wealth. It declared control. Over time, entire economies depended on this trade. Cities grew rich from dye production. Ships sailed constantly. But secrets rarely stay safe forever. Other regions try to copy the process. They search for their own sources. Some failed. Some produced weaker shades. None matched the deep intensity of Tyrian purple. For centuries, the secret held strong. Purple remained rare. Purple remained powerful. But change was coming. Empires rise. Empires fall. As Rome weakened, control over trade shifted. Supply became uncertain. Production slowed. The knowledge of the dye was fragile. It depended on skilled workers, on tradition passed down carefully. When cities were attacked, workshops burned. When trade routes broke, materials vanished. The color began to fade from history. Yet the idea of purple never disappeared. It stayed in memory. It stayed in myth. Centuries later, kings in Europe still linked purple with royalty, even when the original dye was nearly impossible to find. The symbol survived, but the strange question remained. Why was this color so hard to replace? Why did it stay rare for so long? The answer lies in chemistry, in science not yet understood by ancient minds, in a process hidden inside a tiny sea creature. For thousands of years, no easy method existed, no quick shortcut, no cheap solution. But far in the future, a young scientist would make a mistake, and that mistake would change the world of color forever. The year was 1856. London was gray with smoke and rain. Factories hummed with new machines. In a small laboratory, a young student worked late into the night. Glass bottles covered his wooden table. The air smelled of chemicals. His name was William Henry Perkin. He was only 18 years old, but he dreamed of changing science. At the time, malaria was a deadly disease. Doctors searched for better medicine. Quinine was rare and expensive. Perkin tried to create artificial quinine. He mixed chemicals carefully. He followed instructions step by step. But the strange part was, his experiment failed. Instead of clear crystals, he found dark sludge. Most people would have thrown it away. It looked useless. It looked like a mistake. But Perkin noticed something unusual. When he cleaned the mixture with alcohol, the liquid turned purple. Not a weak purple, not a faded shade, but a bright, glowing violet. He dipped a piece of silk into the solution. The fabric absorbed the color quickly. It shined under the light. This purple did not come from sea snails. It did not require thousands of shells. It came from coal tar. Coal tar was a waste product of gas production. Black, sticky, unpleasant, almost worthless. From this dark waste, a brilliant color appeared. It seemed impossible. It seemed almost magical. Perkin called the new dye mauve, a soft French word for purple. It sounded elegant, but few people understood what this meant. For centuries, purple had been rare. Now it could be made in a lab. Perkin did not stop at discovery. He built a factory, He began large-scale production. The dye was cheaper than Tyrian purple. It was easier to produce, and it was bright and stable. Soon, bolts of mauve fabric filled shops. Dressmakers experimented with new designs. Color entered everyday life. The strange part was, at first, many people were unsure. Purple had always belonged to royalty. Was it acceptable for ordinary women to wear it? Was it too bold? Too powerful? Then something unexpected happened. Queen Victoria wore a mauve dress, and everything changed when the Queen appeared in public. Newspapers described the color in detail. Fashion writers praised its beauty. If the Queen could wear mauve, others could too. The color lost its strict limits. Soon, purple dresses filled London streets. Parasols matched gloves. Ribbons matched hats. Factories worked day and night. Chemists searched for new shades. Blue, green, red. Perkins' accident opened a door. Synthetic dyes became a new industry. Chemistry changed fashion forever. Before this moment, most dyes came from nature. Plants, insects, shellfish. They were slow and costly. Now, color could be manufactured, measured, repeated, sold in large quantities. What happened next surprised everyone. Purple was no longer rare. It was everywhere. Shops displayed bright fabrics in their windows. Middle-class families could afford them. Color became democratic. The meaning of purple began to shift. It was no longer only royal. It became fashionable. But the story did not end with fashion. Synthetic dyes spread quickly. They transformed industries. Textile mills expanded across Europe. Workers operated loud machines. Cloth rolled out in endless streams. Trade routes changed again, not for sea snails this time, but for chemical materials. The ancient mounds of broken shells along Mediterranean shores became silent reminders of the past. Their power had faded. Tyrian purple slowly disappeared. It cannot compete with factories. It cannot compete with speed. The old secret was no longer necessary. The world had found shortcut, a faster path to beauty. But there was a hidden cost once again. Factories produced waste. Rivers changed color. Chemical runoff flowed into water. Fish struggled in polluted streams. The price of color returned in a new form. Few people thought about it at first. They were excited by brightness, by variety. Purple became a symbol of creativity. Artists embraced bold shades. Painters experimented with new pigments. In the late 1800s, posters glowed with color. Advertisements became more eye-catching. Cities felt brighter. The world of fashion moved faster than ever. Trends changed season by season. Color drove desire. But the meaning of purple continued to evolve. It was no longer limited by law. It was limited only by taste. The strange part was, even when purple became common, it still felt special. Religious leaders continued to wear it. It remained connected to ceremony, to dignity. Universities used purple in robes and banners. It suggested wisdom. It suggested tradition. In some cultures, purple symbolized mourning. In others, it symbolized celebration. Meaning shifted across borders. From ancient seashells to smoky factories, the journey of purple crossed centuries. It carried history inside its shade. But deeper changes were still coming. The 20th century would give purple new voices, new messages. Music stages glowed with violet lights. Rock stars wore purple suits. The color felt rebellious. Activists adopted purple banners. Movements used it to stand out, to demand attention. What once belonged only to emperors now appeared in protests and parades. Power had shifted. Purple became a color of individuality, of difference, of identity. The rare dye from ancient snails had turned into a global symbol, open to everyone. But one quiet question remained. When a color becomes common, does it lose its power? Or does power simply change shape? Does meaning grow instead of fade? The answer is not simple. In museums, fragments of Tyrian cloth still survive. Small pieces of faded purple. They whisper of ancient luxury. In modern stores, bright purple shirts hang on racks. Affordable, accessible, ready for anyone. The journey from sacred rarity to everyday fashion is not just about color. It is about control, science, and society. In the 20th century, purple stepped onto a new stage. It was no longer controlled by kings. It was carried by culture. Theaters filled with violet light. Concert halls glowed in deep shades. The color felt dramatic and bold. Musicians chose purple for album covers. Stage curtains shimmered behind them. The shades suggested mystery. In fashion magazines, models wore bright violet coats. Photographers loved how it caught the camera. It refused to be ignored. The strange part was, purple still carried a memory of royalty, even when worn by rebels. In the 1960s, new movements grew louder. Young people questioned tradition. They searched for identity. Clothing became a language. Colors became messages. Purple spoke of difference. It was neither calm blue nor urgent red. It stood between extremes, balanced yet unique. Designers mixed shades of lavender and deep plum. Runways turned into rivers of color. Crowds watched in silence. At the same time, scientists refined synthetic dyes further. Colors became brighter and longer lasting. Mass production reached new heights. Supermarkets displayed purple packaging. Candy wrappers shined under lights. Brands discovered its attraction. Marketers studied psychology. They asked what purple made people feel. Luxury? Creativity? Mystery? Many companies used purple to suggest quality, to suggest imagination, to suggest something special. But beneath this brightness, factories expanded. Chemical plants worked without pause. Smoke rose into the sky. Rivers near industrial cities changed color again. Not from snails this time, but from waste. Workers handled strong chemicals daily. Some wore simple protection. Some had none. The cost of color shifted from sea creatures to human labor to environmental damage. Few people connected their bright shirts to polluted water far away. The link was hidden. The strange part was, the more colorful the world became, the less people thought about its source. In classrooms, children colored drawings with purple crayons. They did not imagine ancient emperors. They did not imagine dye vats. In royal ceremonies, purple robes still appeared. Crowns sparkled beside them. Tradition held on quietly. Universities awarded degrees in purple-trimmed gowns. Graduates walked proudly. The color symbolized achievement. Religious leaders continued to use purple during sacred seasons. Candles glowed softly. The meaning remained spiritual. In politics, purple sometimes represented unity, a blend of red and blue, a meeting point of ideas. The color became flexible. It adapted to context. It shaped new meanings. Artists explored ultraviolet light. Neon purples flashed in city streets. Nightlife embraced the glow. Digital screens added new shades. Pixels created endless variations. Purple entered the virtual world. Social media icons used violet gradients. Apps shimmered with soft lilac tones. The color felt modern again. But what happened next surprised everyone. Scientists began questioning chemical dyes. They searched for safer methods. Environmental groups studied polluted rivers. They measured toxic levels. They demanded change. The fashion industry faced criticism. Fast production created mountains of waste. Colors faded into landfills. New designers looked back at history. They studied natural dyes again. They searched for balance. Some returned to plants. Some experimented with bacteria. Innovation continued. The ancient snail dye was nearly forgotten. Yet researchers rediscovered its chemistry. They analyzed its structure carefully. They found that Tyrian purple was stable, resistant to fading, strong across centuries. Small museum samples still held color, despite age and sunlight. Despite time, modern dyes sometimes faded faster. Cheap fabrics lost brightness quickly. The cycle of consumption sped up. The strange question returned. Was rare always better? Or was access more important? In ancient times, purple separated rulers from citizens. In modern times, it united consumers. It crossed social classes. Yet inequality still existed. Luxury brands sold deep violet gowns for prices few could afford. Meanwhile, discount stores sold similar shades cheaply. Mass production made imitation easy. The line between luxury and common blurred. Purple's identity became layered. Royal, rebellious, spiritual, commercial, all at once. Even in space exploration, astronaut photos showed purple nebulae. The universe shared the color. Artists painted galaxies in violet swirls. Children dreamed of cosmic skies. Purple felt infinite. The journey from sea snail to synthetic lab had expanded beyond Earth, beyond tradition. But one reality stayed constant. Color shapes human emotion. It influences perception. Purple, once unreachable, became part of everyday life. Yet it never felt completely ordinary. When someone wears deep violet at a ceremony, heads still turn, attention still shifts. When stage lights fade into soft purple, the mood becomes intimate. The atmosphere deepens. The color still whispers of power, even if laws no longer protect it, even if factories mass-produce it. Perhaps power does not live in rarity alone. Perhaps it lives in memory, in shared history. Every shade of purple carries layers of time. Ancient seas, Victorian laboratories, industrial smoke, modern neon lights, digital screens. The story is not finished yet. Color continues to evolve. Technology moves forward. New materials are being tested. Sustainable dyes are in development. Scientists search for cleaner solutions. Designers ask deeper questions. What does luxury mean today? What does exclusivity mean? If everyone can wear purple, what makes something special now? The answer is changing. The strange part was the color that once divided society now invites everyone in. Its history remains hidden in plain sight, in museum glass cases, in ancient ruins by the sea. And as we look at a simple purple fabric today, we stand at the center of a long journey. A journey not only about color, but about human desire and change. Today, a child opens a box of colored pencils. One pencil is bright purple. It looks no different from the others. The child draws a crown. No law stops the drawing. And yet, deep in history, this same shade once separated rulers from the ruled. It created distance. The strange part is not that purple became cheap. The strange part is how its meaning survived, even after its rarity disappeared. In ancient Tyre, workers crushed thousands of sea snails. They stood beside smoking vats. They breathed heavy air. They never wore the robes they created. They never entered royal courts. Their labor built someone else's power. Centuries later, factory workers mixed chemicals in crowded rooms. Purple flowed from machines instead of shells. The system changed, but effort remained. Each era paid a different price. First in sea life, then in smoke and rivers. Few people stopped to ask, what is the real cost of beauty? Who carries it? The color that once meant untouchable slowly began to mean creative, then bold. Movements marched under purple banners. Voices demanded equality. The symbol shifted again. What once belonged only to emperors now appeared in protest for rights. Power changed direction. In art galleries, purple abstract paintings hang quietly. Visitors interpret them in personal ways. Meaning becomes flexible. In religious spaces, soft violet candles glow. The light feels reflective, almost meditative. In luxury stores, deep plum dresses stand under bright lights. Price tags still surprise customers. Exclusivity still exists. The difference is subtle. Today, rarity is created by brand and design, not by sea snails. The chemistry of purple is no longer a mystery. Scientists understand its structure. They can reproduce it easily. But human desire remains complex. We still search for what feels special. We still chase symbols. The strange part was, purple never truly lost its connection to power. It simply changed its language. In ancient Rome, it said, "I rule." In Victorian England, it said, "I am fashionable." In modern times, it says many things at once. It can whisper luxury. It can shout rebellion. It can suggest imagination. Perhaps the true story is not about one color. Perhaps it is about how humans create meaning and then protect it. When something is rare, we call it precious. When it becomes common, we redefine it. The sea still moves near the ruins of Tyre. Broken shell mounds remain under the sun, quiet evidence of ancient industry. Tourists walk past without noticing. They see rocks and sand. They do not smell the dye vats of history. Time softens everything, even the strongest symbols, even the most expensive colors. Yet when we see deep royal purple today, something inside us still reacts. We pause. Maybe it is memory. Maybe it is centuries of storytelling. Maybe it is habit. The color once required thousands of lives from the sea. Now it requires only a factory formula. Progress has its own complexity. Some designers now search for sustainable dyes. They study plants and microbes. They imagine a cleaner future. Technology continues to evolve. New pigments appear each year. The palette grows wider. But purple remains one of the most emotional shades. Balance between calm blue and strong red. It carries tension within it. That tension may be the secret. It feels both peaceful and powerful, both soft and commanding. Long ago, emperors guarded it. Later, scientists unlocked it. Now, anyone can wear it. The journey from forbidden luxury to everyday expression mirrors human history itself. We move from scarcity to abundance, from control to access, from secrecy to knowledge. And yet, we still look for something rare, something meaningful, something worth protecting. The color that was once too expensive taught the world about power and perception, about how value is created. Next time you see a purple garment, a glowing stage light, or a quiet violet flower, remember the sea snails. Remember the smoky factories. Remember the centuries in between. A simple shade can carry empires inside it. It can hold science and struggle. It can hold change. Colors do not speak with words, but they shape the way we see the world. They guide emotion silently. Purple once divided society. Today, it connects creativity across cultures. Its story continues quietly. History lives in ordinary things, in fabric, in light, and sometimes the most powerful stories hide in a single color. If you enjoyed this journey through history, stay curious about the everyday object around you. They may hold secrets too.